Hello, everyone.
Morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. Hello. All right, thank you all for joining us today for this diversity discussion on what MLK Day means to you individually. It means something different to a lot of people. And so today's discussion is going to explore what our coworkers and colleagues have to say. And hopefully we'll all learn a little something and we can engage in some interesting discussions. No pressure as to who would like to start, but would anyone like to say a few words before we start sharing or have anything they'd like to add?
Sure, I'll jump in if it's okay. As I see who's on the call with us, on the meeting with us, I'm guessing I'm the only one in this call that actually remembers watching Dr. King live. I was probably 12 or 13 years old the first time that I ever saw him on television. And you know, we talk about how people impact our lives. Sometimes it's many, many years later that you realize when that person impacted your life. My mom was a person who put a great deal of stock in the ability of a person to communicate, to make eye contact, to speak well, to articulate their position, to do it without notes, to be able to speak from their heart. She had two people that she used to always tell me I could emulate if I wanted to be a good speaker. One was a Catholic bishop named Fulton Sheen. And if you ever go on YouTube and watch Fulton Sheen videos, this guy was a very compelling and powerful speaker. And the other one was Dr. King. My mother was fascinated by his ability to command an audience, to speak, and to speak so eloquently and so passionately. I was just about 15 when Dr. King was murdered. And all of the kids in my high school in Waterbury, both black and white, were shaken by his murder. And I started looking into more and more of his background because so much new information was coming out about how he had gotten started and how he was in the ministry and how he became such a compelling force. In 1958, someone tried to murder him at a bookstore in Harlem. He was signing copies of a book, and a woman walked up to him and asked him if he was Dr. King. He said yes, and she stabbed him with a 7-inch knife, a pen knife, looked almost like a letter opener, with such force that it snapped off in his chest. And as I'm going back and looking at these articles and these pictures that were taken, Dr. King is sitting there with a knife sticking out of his chest with the calmest face that you could ever see on a person. Everyone else around was total chaos. People shouting, screaming, grabbing the assailant, people trying to staunch the blood that was cut. And he was totally calm. And he was telling people, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. I remember reading that and going, if I could ever be the kind of leader that can keep their head like that. And fortunately, at least so far, I've never been stabbed in the chest. But if you can keep your head about you and worry about the people around you, not yourself, what a gift. What a gift to have and a power to have. So I know I've never come close to being as good a speaker as him or as good a leader as him. But I look back and I go, there are people or events that come into your life that shape your life. And sometimes it's decades before you really realize the impact that those events or those people had. And that's really what I share. It's not so much about Dr. Martin Luther King Day, but really my experience as a young man, watching him, learning from him, being confused by the whole situation as to why he and other leaders of that time were taken away from us. But those things stay with me as I think back. Over the next couple of days, we'll see a lot of either on TV or online, we'll see replays of his speeches and the marches, and to recognize the power of the man. It continues, it's 50 years, and that power is as strong today as it was 50 some odd years ago. It's incredible. So I didn't mean to go off on a tangent like that, but I wanted to share that with you. My philosophy and my beliefs, I think in large part were influenced by his courage and his character.
Yeah, Ray, I think what you said, hits it right, kind of on the line, and, not having the experience to, be alive like during his time, but his path and his leadership, I think, has stuck with us for so long, and obviously, being taught about it from home and our families and the school system. But I think to still have that power, right? Just listening to his speeches and listening to him talk and how it was so like delivered and still be moving, to this day, I think, is extremely, moving, at least, for me. And I think, what Martin Luther King means to me, or Martin Luther King Day means to me, is really like, that perseverance, the leadership to never give up, no matter, kind of what we go through as individuals or as a community, within our workplace, within our home life, whatever town we live in, and everything that we've seen nationally. I think that if we, I've really taken the messages from him to say, let's, continue to push forward. And I think, and if anything that I really got from him is the unity, right? Like he really encompassed unity. We're in this together. And I, looking back at the MLK days of him marching and speaking, the crowd was diverse. More than what people thought it was. And I think he really just encompassed the diversity amongst what is right and how do we, move forward as a community, no matter your skin color, your class, your gender. And I think he just really encompassed all of that. So, for me, it just really means, continuous unity and moving together, moving forward together on the right path.
Thank you, Chris. If I might go next, I actually, to clarify for those who may not know who watched this afterwards, Ray is my father, and personally, I had never heard that recollection from you about your own grandmother and I knew she wanted you to go into the church, which I always thought was funny, but I never knew that she thought you should emulate MLK, and that's eye-opening to me. And from a generational difference, it's history that you learn from in terms of what MLK was. And to me, it's still mind-boggling to think about how far, and yet how far still we have to come in terms of accepting people in our society in different ways. But to hold on to your beliefs and to fight for what you think is right is really the simplest way I can express that sentiment. So that was my 2 cents there. Thank you.
Well, and to tie in with what Chris said, when we see where we are as a nation today, and there are so many positives that have occurred, but there are still so many negatives that occur. Think back to Martin Luther King's speech on the Mall with 200,000 people there, and nothing got broken into, and no one invaded the Capitol, and so when you having been around when those things were happening and watching the dynamic in Waterbury, Connecticut, of all places, as people began to demand equality and fairness, and their share of the American dream, if you will, and see where we are now as a country, we've made great progress. We're not there yet, but we've made great progress. But then when you see something happen like what happened last week in the Capitol, you again realize just the bravery that King had to say that the movement would be nonviolent. It forced people that were sitting on the fence, or people that were ignorant of the struggle that Black and brown people in the country had. It forced them to look at it and to understand more than they ever would have if it was violent. Because even with the violence that we had in Washington last week, even supporters of the current administration, about to be former administration, they've disavowed it. And that's what will happen with violence. It will polarize us. Whereas, Dr. King's approach was a nonviolent approach, is going to unify us. And again, I don't think we are where we need to be, but I think we're certainly further along than we were because of his leadership.
Yeah, I want to say something about Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King is celebrated all around the United States, but not only around the United States, but also around the world. The first time I heard about Martin Luther King was when I was overseas. I was born overseas, raised overseas. So Martin Luther King is a very well-known overseas too. They celebrate Martin Luther King overseas, especially in Africa, specifically in Guinea, where I'm from. We have schools named after Martin Luther King. We have days, a day of celebration about Martin Luther King. I think it's around this time too, around the day. The day he was born. And we have sport teams named after Martin Luther King. We have street named after Martin Luther King. And also, when I was at the university in Africa, we used to have there was a group, a theatrical group named after Martin Luther King. So they used to do a lot of shows, about him over there. So Martin Luther King is somebody we look after. He's a good example. He's a hero in Africa, like all the other heroes over there who defended the countries against colonization. I remember in my classroom, and when I was in high school, there was a picture of him in the back of the room. So Martin Luther King was a big person in Africa.
And I also, think he was, a man that showed like versatility, like really versatile in his advocacy, and not just did he plan marches for, the fight against racial inequality, but, he, started to dive in, a little bit of politics and looking at capitalism. There was a fight he did about poverty within, certain communities and access to education for individuals of all colors, because, not just African-American people were living in poverty at that time, and they're still not, right? So, and I think that's something that I admire about him too. He was very versatile in his advocacy and his work. And, some things hit the media more than others, but I think he was, like Ray said, well-spoken, well-educated in his delivery and what his focus was. And, as we work for, CMHA and I see our company as like really a grassroots organization with, social work values. I think that, he and kind of encompass the things why we all are in this field today, and why some of us went to school for social work or to become a counselor or decided to work in mental health and healthcare in general. I think looking at his history and what he did and how he advocated, we can bring those things to the workplace, advocate for our clients and our community, and just making the world a better place all the way around, for sure.
Last night, I was talking to my kids about the significance of Martin Luther King Day and why we celebrate this gentleman and why he was such an important historical figure in this country and around the world. And we were talking about his fight for justice and peace and equality, and his insistence that this be done in a non-violent, non-destructive way, which is in direct contrast to a lot of what we've seen lately happening around this country, which my kids have also picked up on. And they're very small. My kids are very small kids. And I think of the many famous quotations from Dr. King. My favorite is probably the one that talks about darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And it's something that means a lot to me, and something that we talk about at home a lot. So that's what I think about when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King. Lots and lots of things, but that specific quotation and that insistence that change be achieved through peaceful, non-violent, non-destructive means.
And again, amazing that, you know, fourth, fifth generation since Dr. King was assassinated. And that's the kind of lessons that still his legacy imparts to all kinds of people. So it's cool.
I think for me, it goes back to the service piece. Growing up, my family's big on education. And if you're going to do something, educate yourself and understand it and do research. I had the opportunity to actually visit Georgia and where he's buried and look at the church, some of the rich history that goes along with his legacy. I was able to go to DC and see where the march happened and reflect on his speech. And with everything that's going on in the world, it just reminds you in regards to this country, we don't have to be selfish. It's a service to others, and we benefit from it because we get to see change, and we're a part of change in a way that not only impacts this generation, but the next generation and next generation. And that's the legacy that he left, is that service is not selfish. It's something that you do because that's what you're supposed to do. He implemented the religion piece to remind people that faith will take you longer than anything else that you can see in front of you or behind you. And I think for myself personally, I really enjoy when we come around to celebrate his birthday and some of the services that I get to participate in. Also, I get my daughter very active because I'm trying to instill in her that we're blessed, but you also got to give back to others, because we could have been in the same shoes that other people have been in. So it's really just reflecting, remembering the service piece of it, and it's unselfish.
Yeah, I love that, Dasha. Just, you know, the service piece, as, you know, being a service provider, like I just said, you know, getting involved in a community, and how like far that goes for an individual, even if it's one person. I think that we, you know, can make change in, right, or affect them by, you know, I know Meaghan is helping with a coat drive, and giving someone a coat can go so far, right, and mean so much. And I think, you know, he definitely encompass that. And, you know, watching documentaries and his speeches, it's like that one little thing. You know, everyone, we can't all be you know, great, you know, heroes every day and leading marches, but you know, doing a coat drive and giving someone something that they're in need of, or organizing, you know, handing out food to our clients. You know, that's what keeps me going, in a sense. Like, all right, you know, this is something that, you know, he would have done, or he would have you know, recommended or pushed us to do if he was still here, and we had the chance to actually listen to him speak live. Like, these things are I think that we all encompass, like why we're here talking today and why our agency is running is because of the service piece. And I think that he definitely played a part in the development of like furthering grassroots organizations to continue that work. So yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I didn't really think of it in that way, of like service.
Well, and you know, Chris and Dasha, when it comes to what we as an organization can take from Dr. King's legacy, he knew and said it often that he was not going to see the end of the journey, but he was taking it anyway. And that's kind of like how we have to look at our work at CMHA and our work in the community. We're not going to see the end of the journey, but we take it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And we will influence the people that come behind us to continue the journey. But you can't influence folks to do that unless you're prepared to take the journey yourself, even knowing that you're not going to finish it. It's not going to end with you. And I think that's something we all need to remember, especially when we're dealing with really difficult times, difficult clients, difficult financial situations, pandemics, demands on us as an organization to serve. We need to make sure that we're taking the journey. So I need to leave this because unfortunately I have another one of these Zoom meetings to attend, which by the way, I've just about had enough of Zoom. Everybody get vaccinated so we can get back to a little bit of normalcy as soon as possible, please. And thanks everyone for letting me join in today. Thank you, Meaghan, for putting it on. Everyone enjoy the holiday weekend, okay?
You too, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good seeing y'all, thank you.
Just as a time warning, I got the little 10-minute bubble popping up on my page. We've had great conversations so far, but anyone who hasn't spoken yet, please don't feel as though you have to be a audience member in this. If anyone would like to add, please feel free.
Everyone.
I can go next. I just wanted to say that, I consider him a hero, and I know he's a hero to many of us. And one way to keep his dream alive is just by being kind to other people and helping others. And like Marisa said, teaching our kids and teaching the future about him, and just, continuing that dream that he had and his vision. And I think, just continue his legacy and just moving that forward. And hopefully the world will be a better place in the future.
Thank you for that, Claudia. No, I've definitely learned a little bit today, people's perspectives and the continuing it on from generation to generation. That was a theme I didn't anticipate today, but I was very glad that we discussed that.
I think it's an important holiday to, recognize, and he's definitely an important person. And, I like that we're doing this. I know, like, some of the people are on the Diversity Committee, some people aren't, but I just think that, these conversations as a social work agency, for us to continue just to kind of have, conversations around individuals that really have impacted the work that we do, right, as social workers and counselors and case managers and all of our roles, right, within this organization, no matter what role you sit in, at CMHA really contributes to doing good work, right, for people and being of service, like what Dasha said. And I think it's like beautiful that we can come around via Zoom. I wish it was in person, but come around and discuss like really what he means to us. And I think you guys are all hitting on the nail, like the future, right? Like, how do we continue to educate the future on his message, rather they be our kids or people that are a little bit younger than us, even some of our clients that necessarily didn't have that experience of getting the education on like what MLK did in our world and how it affected our communities and the change, and how we look at how schools and places were segregated not that long ago, right? Like there was segregation not that long ago, and for us to be of all mixed race on this call and to be coming together, I think is exactly what he would have wanted to see, right? We have women, we have men, we have Black, we have white, we have Spanish, Peruvian, Jamaican, African, like it just in what 6, 7, 8 people, right? So many different races. And I think if he was able to see this today in person, I think he would be extremely impressed. So if we can just keep this message going that diversity, inclusion, and equity is important for the future. So, yeah. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chris.
I don't think that people talk about this a lot. I don't think that we make as big a deal of this kind of stuff as we should. And I mean the global we, not like this core group of people is amazing and we talk about this stuff, but I think for like a lot of kids in public school, Martin Luther King Day is a day that comes around once a year, and maybe the week before the teachers kind of talk about it and kind of talk about his message, but then it's done for like another year. And in order for this to continue to progress, I think we need to, the global we needs to make it our mission to keep talking about this and keep insisting that we do things more this way instead of dressing in costume and storming the Capitol. I'm probably not articulating myself very well, but I think it's important to keep talking about this, not just to our children, but to really anybody who needs to hear it and anybody who will listen. And sometimes even people who embody the same kind of mission need to hear it over and over again to remind ourselves how to focus the right way.
No. Thank you for that, Marisa. Sorry, Quandel?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna kind of piggyback off that. I remember being in school and it never really being something that we spoke about often. I mean, even just, like the real history of everything that kind of happened and how intense and, like how those times were, just wasn't really, I don't know, it wasn't really a big piece of, what I even remember high school being or middle school being or elementary school being. But I definitely agree with you that it is something that needs to be spoken about more often. And it is, something that, I just feel like it needs to just be a constant conversation just to keep his, message alive and kind of just keep us all progressing. That's it.
Thank you. There's always the awkward pause while I go to find my mute or unmute button.
And I think the message of like anti-division, right, of like not being divided, is I think very, very key in anything, right? We as people, we're taking Martin Luther King's message is that we will always have, I think, different opinions on certain topics, but there is a way to still be a unit in learning how to communicate in a peaceful, respectable way where we continue to move forward, no matter what. And I really want to just, really hone in on that, like just anti-division, like let's like work towards a community of not being divided and taking differences and making it like more of like a hostile environment where no one wants to talk and communicate. But I think like, even joining these conversations like right here, we, can set the example for others to, come together and share.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I'm very impressed by everything you all have had to say today, and I want to thank you for participating and for freely talking about how you feel about MLK Day and what it means to you. And I'm very excited for the tone that we set and the sense of mission that we still have, because as we've all said, it's not over, we have a way to go, but with groups of people like you, I'm more than excited for the future. I really don't worry about it, in the sense that if so long as people can have conversations about this and move forward, even when it's difficult to talk about, I think we're going to be okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you again, Meaghan, for setting this up. Appreciate it.
Glad to do it. All right. Well, thank you all again for participating. And before Zoom kicks us off in another 60 seconds, I say we'll end the meeting, but thank you all again. And I hope you all have a wonderful Friday, and that whether it be through acts of service or talking to your kids or just learning and educating yourself about MLK, I hope you all have a good weekend and MLK Day on Monday.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.